Alrighty, welcome back, boys and girls. It's your main math man, Miss Shank, coming to you live from Mayfield. And in this video, we're going to be working on that squares and roots homework number 2. Just a little bit simple practice for us to make sure we solidify those ideas. So for number 1, it says make sure you circle each of the following square roots. So we're looking for the square root of 225. So we're saying, okay, if we have the square root of 225, so let me pull up my Desmos calculator, and I can say, all right, I have the square root, and then I have 225. So again, you're looking for not only the positive square root, so we're going to say, all right, we have the positive square root. We also want to make sure we have the negative square root. So we want to make sure we include both of those values in there. So make sure that you are having that there for yourself. So now on that second one, again, on the screen you can kind of see I have these wonderful square root list for ourselves. That way we can kind of help sort and find those a little bit more manageable to use. So on that next one, it reads like this. It says, find each of the following values and then circle the one that is between negative 15 and negative 16. So some of these you can kind of, we can use these just like we did before, where we kind of lined up and figured out, okay, where is that square root fall between? But for right now, we can use a Desmos calculator as well. So let's go ahead and figure out, all right, for negative, let's do negative square root of 144. So again, it shows up on the right side there, so we're going to say this is going to be negative 12. And knowing from our simple number lines, we know that negative 12 does not go between negative 15 and negative 16. So now for this next one, it says negative square root, so let's say negative and square root 249. And so let's check. So let's see. We know that 249 is going to be between these two numbers. So if you look again on that square roots list, you can kind of see, hey, I have that it goes between the square root of 225 and the square root of 256. So it's going to go between 15 and 16. Again, we're talking about negative, of course. And so we're going to just go out to the hundredths column, and we're going to say that negative 15.78. Again, if you want to, you can round to the nearest hundredth. So I can say, again, anytime you want to round, you want to say round, and let's say parentheses. You can use that ANS button that pulls this previous answer here. So I said my answer, and I hit a comma, because it's saying, okay, how many decimal places do you need to have? Well, I want to go to the second decimal place because I'm talking about the hundredths. And so I say the second decimal place, and so now it has my answer nice and rounded for ourselves. All right, so let's see. Okay, maybe there might be other ones in here that we need. So let me clear this out a little bit. Let's say the square root, or excuse me, the negative square root of 200. And what you can do is you don't have to clear all this out. You can actually just type in and select what you want to change, and it will still do it for you. So see how it still has round, it's still pulling down that same answer that we have, and it rounds it for us. So we can say that's going to be negative 14.14. And again, we're saying that these are irrational numbers, since those 3 dots mean it keeps going, and as you can see, it does not have a pattern. And for that last one, let's do very simply the square root, negative square root of 300. We're going to take and say, okay, that's going to be negative 17.32, and then we have those dots to show that it keeps going. So now, out of these 4 values, which of them that we're going to circle falls between negative 15 and negative 16? Well, we would say that, hey, this value is going to fall between negative 15 and negative 16. Again, if you wanted to put it on the number line, you can. That way you can see it for yourself. Moving on to number 3, it says calculate the value of square root of 89 and then place it on the number line below. So what you can do, a lot of people like to put 0 in the middle. That's a good habit, but let's maybe do a little bit different. Actually, let me hold that off. I'm gonna hold that to the side. So what I'm gonna do, before I even number my number line, let's do what it says. Let's calculate what it's going to be, and let's actually look. So it says the square root of 89. Well, I'm going to look on my list of square roots, and I'm going to see, hey, let me actually bump this up a little bit and put these two together. So that way I can say that, all right, I have my square root of 89 is going to be between what two numbers? Well, it's going to be between the perfect squares of 81 and 100. And when we take that square root, whatever we calculate, it should be between 9 and 10. So again, make sure you're seeing those two numbers, 9 and 10, those are those consecutive integers, meaning they're back to back. So we're going to say that, okay, hey, this number that we calculate should go between 9 and 10. So again, you can use that Desmos calculator, double check your answers as always. And so we're going to say the square root of 89 is 9.4, and then it has those decimals afterwards. So we know that, hey, that is going to be between 9 and 10. And so what we can do, we can go ahead, label that number line for ourselves. You don't have to label it the whole way, but at least have between those two main numbers that we are working with. There we go. English isn't always my strong suit, but at least try it out. So, as always, let's now get an even better answer. We know for sure it's going to be between 9 and 10. What's in the middle of those two numbers? You guessed it, it's 9.5. So right in the middle of 9.5, or excuse me, right in the middle of 9 and 10 is 9.5. So now let's say, okay, is it going to be to the left? Is it going to be to the right of this 9.5? Well, if you're thinking of money, if this is $9.43, it's going to be less than that, and so we can say it's just to the left of that value. So what you can do is go ahead and put it in original form like we had, and we said, okay, right there is going to be my square root of 89. So again, make sure you're seeing how I pieced this together. Again, you be using this square root list for yourself as well. So let me move these back over for ourselves, and then let me have this next one as well. And as always, make sure you can pause, rewind, replay, turn that volume up the whole way, turn the volume down an appropriate amount, that way you can hear it as well. Also make sure you're using those closed captions. So now for this last one, it reads like this. It says, as always, calculate each of the following square roots, and then circle each circle each one that could possibly be the point J on the number line below. So it gives us a number line. We're trying to figure out which one would be J. So let's go ahead and figure some of these out. So let's see what I can do. I'm going to use this wonderful Desmos calculator for ourselves. I'm looking for the square root of 230. And if I want to, I can also use that wonderful square roots list. If I'm saying it's 230, that should be between which two perfect squares? It should be between 225 and 256, which it is, since the square root of this value is 15.16. So let's go ahead and round that. So we're going to say round, and I'd like to round my answer to the nearest hundredth. So I'm going to say that second decimal place. And so I'm going to say it's about that much. Again, it's not going to be perfect, but you want to at least see what two values it falls between. And so you can say, hey, it falls between 15 and 16, just like we guessed, and just like we proved using that Desmos calculator. Moving on to this next one, we can say, all right, let's just clear out. Again, we don't have to hit clear all because we are still using the same idea. So we're going to say 288. However, I need to make sure I include that negative out front. So it says negative 16.97. I'm going to say that's my value that I have there. So I said the negative square root of 288 is negative 16.97, ... For this last one here, I'm going to say, or last one on the left column, I should say, I have the square root of 280. So now it's going to say 16.73. Keep going down on that right side, I have the square root of 260 is going to be about 16.12 again, make sure you're including those other values, or excuse me, those decimal places. That way you can show that, hey, it doesn't just stop there, it keeps going. But again, I'm just looking at that hundredths column. That way it's a little bit easier to see. And let's do these last two here. So we have 360. So I'm going to say a square root of 360 is going to be 18.97. And lastly, we have this square root of 420 is going to be 20.49. So now, got all those calculated out. Let's make sure, let's see, okay, which of these values is going to be most, or best guess, I should say, as, let's say, point, or excuse me, the point J. So let's do and say, hey, I know that right in the middle is going to be that 16.5. So I need something a little bit above that, but the only number that is above that and is positive is going to be that square root of 280. So make sure you're saying, again, it has to be this value. A lot of people like to put this value because it's the first one they see. That is wrong. That's a negative number. It's on the complete other side of that number line. So make sure you are very careful on those values. And as always, super slam that subscribe button.